On October 20, 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed a dark, upright figure walking across a sandbar at Bluff Creek in Northern California. That is the confirmed starting point. A real film. A named place. A named date. The disputed part is what the camera captured. Was it an unknown animal, a person in a suit, or one of the most durable illusions in American folklore? The first evidence is this: Bigfoot is not one claim. It is a stack of claims, tracks, stories, film, hair, hoaxes, habitat maps, and the rational explanation may be scarier than the monster, because it suggests an entire culture can build a creature out of fragments and still leave behind evidence that refuses to die. Before the Patterson-Gimlin film, the modern name Bigfoot was pushed into public view by a 1958 newspaper story from Northern California. Large tracks appeared around a logging site near Bluff Creek, and the Humboldt Times helped turn the footprint reports into a regional headline. Confirmed, the name Bigfoot became popular through mid-century newspaper coverage. Disputed, those specific tracks proved an unknown primate. Later, the story became tangled with admitted hoaxing connected to carved wooden feet, which is why this case has to be handled carefully. The tracks did not create Bigfoot from nothing. Indigenous traditions and older wild man stories existed long before the newspaper age. But the modern media creature, the one that could move through headlines, television, merchandise, documentaries, and eyewitness databases, needed a name. And in 1958, the name stuck. The Bigfoot map is not random. Reports concentrate heavily in forested regions of the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. That geography is one reason the legend survives. The forests are large enough to feel unknowable. The weather can erase tracks quickly. The terrain can hide animals, people, and mistakes. And when a story is placed inside deep timber, it inherits the forest's authority. Confirmed, Bigfoot reports cluster in specific regions and have become strongly associated with North American forests. Interpretive, that clustering may reflect habitat, culture, media attention, population patterns, or all of them at once. This is where the rational explanation begins to unsettle the story. Maybe the map is not only showing where a creature could hide, maybe it is showing where a belief system can reproduce. Footprints are Bigfoot's oldest visual proof. They are simple, emotional, and instantly readable. A huge track in mud says something passed here. But footprints are also one of the easiest evidence types to contaminate, misread, fake, or exaggerate. Confirmed, many casts and photographs of alleged Bigfoot tracks exist. Disputed, they prove a living unknown species. Interpretive, some tracks show details that believers consider difficult to fake, including pressure ridges, toe positions, and unusual gait patterns. Skeptics respond that hoaxers can be skilled, mud can deceive, and isolated prints without a body, bone, DNA sample, or repeatable observation cannot carry the whole case. That is the Bigfoot problem in miniature. The clue is physical enough to feel real, but incomplete enough to remain unclosed. The Patterson-Gimlin film became the central exhibit because it gives the legend a body. Not just a track. Not just a scream in the trees. A moving figure. Supporters point to proportions, stride, muscle movement, and the difficulty of building a convincing suit in 1967. Skeptics point to motive, film quality, lack of a recovered body, and the long history of costume hoaxes. Confirmed, the film exists and was shot in 1967 at Bluff Creek. Disputed, the figure is an unknown primate. Interpretive, the film's ambiguity is exactly why it remains powerful. If it were clearly fake, the mystery would collapse. If it were clearly a new animal, the debate would be over. Instead, it lives in the narrow middle where belief can keep breathing. One of the stranger official documents in the Bigfoot story is the FBI hair analysis file. In the 1970s, Bigfoot researcher Peter Byrne asked the FBI to analyze hairs connected to the case. The Bureau did examine a sample, and the reported result did not identify an unknown primate. It matched deer family hair. That does not disprove every Bigfoot report, but it shows what happens when folklore meets a lab bench. Confirmed, the FBI file exists, and the analysis did not support a Bigfoot identification. Disputed, whether other samples elsewhere could still be significant. The rational explanation gets darker here because the test does not end the legend. Negative evidence is absorbed. The story moves to the next track, the next sound, the next witness, the next valley. A monster can be killed by a bullet. A belief can survive a lab report. If Bigfoot is a real breeding animal population, biology makes demands. There would need to be enough individuals to reproduce over time. There would need to be food, territory, waste, tracks, hair, nesting behavior, deaths, and eventually bones. Confirmed, North America has large forests and known large mammals. Disputed, any verified non-human primate population exists there today. The missing body problem is not a cheap argument. It is a hard biological question. Large animals leave material behind. Bears leave bodies, moose leave bones, mountain lions leave scat and hair and roadkill. For Bigfoot to be real and still unconfirmed, it would need to be rare, intelligent, wide-ranging, extremely avoidant, and lucky across generations. That is possible in a story. Science needs more. The most ordinary explanation is not always the least frightening. Black bears can stand upright. People can misjudge size in forests. Low light changes distance. Fear edits memory. An animal glimpsed for 2 seconds can become taller, darker, stranger, and more human-like after the witness tries to explain it. Confirmed, bears, humans, shadows, and hoaxes all exist in Bigfoot territory. Interpretive, many sightings may be a mixture of misidentification and memory reconstruction. But that explanation does not mean witnesses are lying. It means the forest is an unreliable courtroom. It gives you movement, sound, shape, and adrenaline, then asks your brain to write a report. Sometimes the report becomes a creature. The rational explanation is scarier because it does not give us one monster. It gives us a system. A footprint becomes a headline. A headline becomes a map. A map becomes a hunt. A hunt creates more witnesses. More witnesses create more evidence folders. And every unresolved fragment protects the next one. If Bigfoot is not a hidden animal, then Bigfoot may be a hidden process, the way humans turn uncertainty into a body, then send that body walking through the woods for 70 years. That does not make the legend worthless. It makes it more revealing. Bigfoot may be less a creature of the forest than a creature of the boundary between evidence and need. We want the world to still have something enormous in it that has not been catalogued. So what would actually change the case? A clear body or skeletal remains. Independent DNA from a controlled sample that does not match known animals. Repeatable thermal footage from multiple angles. A trackway documented before contamination, with scale, soil analysis, stride data, and independent review. A nest site with hair, scat, and environmental DNA confirmed by multiple labs. That is the standard because the claim is biological. For a living species, the final evidence has to be biological too. Until then, Bigfoot remains a rare kind of mystery, culturally enormous, evidentially fragmented, emotionally convincing, scientifically unconfirmed. It is not nothing. But it is not enough. The cleanest verdict is not that every witness is wrong. It is not that every track is fake. It is not that the forest has no secrets. The cleanest verdict is that Bigfoot has real evidence trails, but no confirmed species. The Patterson-Gimlin film is real, but its subject is disputed. Footprints are real artifacts, but their origin is disputed. Hair samples can be tested, but known animal results do not prove the creature. The legend survives because each category is incomplete in a different way, and maybe that is why Bigfoot keeps walking. Not because the evidence is strong enough to close the case. Because it is strange enough to keep the door open. If you were reviewing the Bigfoot case, what would finally convince you? The Bluff Creek film? A perfect footprint trackway? A clean DNA result? Or would only a body close the file? Tell me your proof standard in the comments. And stay with Mystery Atlas TV for the next case where the evidence is real, the legend is louder, and the truth may be stranger than the creature.